Healing the witch wound requires that we rest, we emerge, we compost, we plant seeds, we do it all over again. When we're healing the witch wound, we need to honor the seasonality of our energy. Sometimes we have the energy to go big, go hard, and sometimes we need a nap. And amongst all of that solar energy that we can look at and see how our energy, how the witch world is playing out in our day to day lives, the things we can see, how we are showing up at work, how we are showing up for our families, that I am identity language. I am a mother, so I must do this. I am a coworker, so I must do this. I am a woman in this industry, so I must do this in order to be seen, in order to not be downcast. I must perform, behave this way, wear this mask, fit in versus belong, fit in versus belong. I am, I must. While we can look at seasonal energy, and we do, and we should, and we will look at seasonal energy as this tool for rest and reemergence, we can look at moon energy, lunar energy, for doing more routine work of healing, more connection, more community, more belonging, more of healing that witch wound. All right, y'all, this is part 4 of a 4-part series, which means we are wrapping this up. If you missed parts 1, 2, and 3, I invite you to stop this and go back and check those out. Part 1 is going to give you a wonderful foundation about the witch wound and what it is, what my angle is as we're talking about this here today. Part 2 is going to talk about the difference between fitting in and belonging, and how we really do so much work to fit in that only deepens the witch wound. What we really need is belonging. So go back to part 2 for that. Part 3, I talked about using solar energy as the rhythm for healing. We cannot go, go, go. Just like the sun, we need to set sometimes. Just like the earth, we need to get cold and dark sometimes. And in this episode, or this part here, part 4, we're going to talk about moon magic, working with the rhythm of the moon for witch wound healing. So, if seasonal rhythms, the solar year is this big picture of rising and setting, right? Winter versus summer, and the cycle of dark to light over and over and over again. The lunar rhythms are our smaller sort of self-coaching, self-talk, self-therapy, whatever, I don't know, self-inner dialogue moments where day to day, minute by minute, hour by hour, lunar cycle by lunar cycle, we can have a fresh moment to release whatever is keeping us feeling small, or like a victim, or like we need to be validated, or like we are second guessing ourselves and looking for somebody to tell us the way forward, so we can release that and reclaim our power, reclaim our power. While the sun is these bigger seasonal shifts, the moon is smaller. We see it takes 1 year, so 365 days, for Earth to move around the sun, right? And 24 hours for the Earth to spin, where we have daylight and darkness. All that science jazz. And with the lunar cycle, it takes 28 days for the moon to make that revolution around the Earth. We're seeing a similar cycle where, like the sun, we see the cycle on the Earth. We see the moon change in the sky around us. So the moon goes from dark, that winter energy, to full, that's summer energy, back to dark again, similar to growing in spring, waning and releasing in autumn. And the fact that this happens basically monthly, every 28, 29 days or so, this is that more in the moment reminder to check in with your feeling body. The moon in astrology represents the statement, I feel. It's your inner world, where the sun is your outer world, the moon is your inner world. So if we're looking at our outer world, we can see based on our outer world where we need to rest, where we need to recover, where maybe we're playing some imposter syndrome nonsense, being victim to that community-wide witch wound that we have all contributed to. And in community, we can heal. But with the moon, we can really look at our inner worlds. How am I feeling right now? And through that, I feel language, through working with the lunar cycles and these rhythms, and then just applying the rhythm to our daily lives, even, we can really take a moment to check in with our own selves and maybe catch ourselves pouring salt in that witch wound, catch ourselves hiding and dimming, right? And we can reorient, we can recalibrate and reclaim how we want to feel, how we want to be visible, and do some of that witch wound healing for ourselves. The witch wound runs deep for us. It's in our ancestral memories. My grandmother, she's 87, and we were talking recently about a couple months ago. There was some stuff happening in the world on the media, about some news stories about current men in power across different places and how they've treated women in the past. And my grandmother was telling this story about when she was a young teenager. My grandma got married a week after she turned 16. So when she says teenager, she must mean like 13, 14, possibly 15, but she was young. And she was talking about how this minister at her church was, always talking to her and her friend. And then one day they were at a diner that my grandmother worked at. She was like one of those soda fountain diner places. She worked there, and she looked up and he was there. And then it happened again. And then he was kind of looking at her, and then he was closer. And then he said to the girls, her and her friend, you ought to come to the church for this thing, whatever. And so the implication being, and the point of the story being, that there were very clearly some ill intentions there by this minister. And so when my grandmother told her mother about it, my grandmother got in trouble and was like, you don't talk about that kind of stuff. You don't tell on your minister, whatever. And so my grandma's telling me this story, and she's saying, this just happens to women. We just have to deal with it. It happens to everybody. It's always happened. You just move on. You move past it. That is that sort of ancestral story that plays out in the witch wound. Well, it's just been this way. So deal with it. Just figure it out and deal with it. And I know when I was a teenager, I had a sexual assault experience when I was in school. And, the school got involved. All these things happened. And in the end, though, the perpetrator of the event was expelled for 1 week, 5 days. And this person's mother had the audacity, actually, the father wrote the letter on behalf of the mother, but had the audacity to write me a letter telling me how sad the mother was. The mother had been medicated because she couldn't stop crying. And she just, she's a woman of faith, and this has been so hard for their family. And then the school, I was being bullied mercilessly at the time as well for this event. The school offered to send me to the Catholic girls' school, and they offered to pay for it to make the bullying stop. Now, I am not 87, so we'll say this is in modern history that this occurred. And we can see how these things play out. And so when we are here and we have this powerful voice inside us, this inner knowing, this wise woman saying, no, that's not right. No, it doesn't have to be that way. Whether it's these big societal things that are occurring, or it's in the workplace where somebody says, no, you have to answer everybody's questions. You have to have your door open in your office. You have to answer all the emails. You have to help this person because you can't let them flounder. You have to be the savior. You have to be the savior at home. You have to be the savior at work. In order to be the good person, you must do this. It must look that way. The lunar rhythm is this more immediate, constant opportunity for us to pause and say, you know what? How do I want to feel right now? And how is my shadow encouraging me to feel? What is true here? What doesn't have to be true? What is a perspective? But there can be a different perspective. What can I take action on to shift the way I'm about to react right now? What needs to be released and reset because it's actually not helpful and it's keeping me in my shadow and not in my light? It's keeping me as a perpetuator of the witch wound and not putting me in a position to do something different and heal the witch wound. This is hard work. It feels uncomfortable. It feels uncomfortable to stand out, to be against the grain, and we all like to think we're doing that. Like we are doing things to help the collective. We're changing our lives. We're breaking ancestral patterns. The fact of the matter is though is it is very challenging to feel like we don't fit in. And I talk about this in episode 2 or part 2 of this series. It is very hard to feel like we don't fit in, or it's hard to feel like like we're not fitting in. We don't want to feel like an outcast. And we are not conditioned and trained and taught how to just belong, how to just belong in the world, because so much is put on us to demonstrate worth for fitting in, not innate what's the word I'm looking for? Not innate worthiness, not unconditional belonging. I landed it. Unconditional, not unconditional belonging. That is not put on us. We are not conditioned, societally conditioned to unconditionally belong. We are very much conditioned to conditionally conditionally fit in, right? So when we are working with the solar cycle, again, this is where we are doing bigger work of healing and resetting. But when we're working with the lunar cycles, we are doing the more in the moment, day to day shadow work. And we can do ritual in community over the solar year and have these bigger, like, uh, journey experiences about the longer haul of healing our own inner worlds, our own witch wounds, the societal witch wound. But in the lunar cycles, the shorter lunar cycles that come again and again and again within a solar year, we have these more immediate moments to say, what's happening right now? If I am this long term, how do I feel right now in that identity? How do I feel right now in society? How do I feel right now in my belonging? And we can utilize our community to help support us in that. When we are looking at the moon, people, now we align the calendar by the sun. But before that, we aligned the calendar in time before there were calendars around the sun too, also around the sun and around the moon. And to some extent, the calendar's still aligned around the moon. I mean, Easter, Christian holiday Easter, that is aligned around the full moon, if I'm not mistaken. I did have an experience of years ago explaining to my kids Jesus and the Easter Bunny. And I obviously messed it up because my 4-year-old thought Jesus was like a zombie rabbit. I don't or the Easter bunny was named Jesus. So I do believe though Easter, right, is aligned with a full moon. So we're still doing this, but not as much as once was. And when we can get into our community and bring these rhythms back in and have community to support us in that witnessing and celebration, we are more likely to do the work of healing the witch wound, which will have vast positive impacts for us as people, our families, generations to come, the men in our lives, the whole damn world that feels like it could use a big hug right now. Working with the moon is a wonderful practice to come home to yourself, to release, to celebrate, to witness, to decide how you want to feel, how you want to be, and how you want to show up in the world, in a world that is telling you how to be and how to show up again and again and again. And when we work with the moon and we work with the moon in community, we are coming out of hiding. We're coming out of being isolated where we feel like we're too afraid to be seen. We don't want to talk too much. Am I not talking enough? Am I not fitting in? Working with the moon was never meant to be a secret thing. Even now, when we talk about Easter, I don't hear it in mainstream dialogue. Well, the full moon's on this day, which means Easter's on this day. No, it's just always Easter's early this year. Easter's late this year. And I was actually talking to my grandmother, who is very Christian, about the moon relationship. And it was like the first time she'd ever heard of it. And that woman's gone to church, every Sunday for most of her life. And that was her first hearing of this topic. So hopefully I'm not incorrect about it. But working with the moon, working with your magical energy, your inner stories and your power was never meant to be done in secret, never meant to be done in private. It is a communal thing. It's a communal aspect of healing. You are meant to be witnessed and celebrated. You are meant to be seen, but we are made to feel like we are not meant to be seen. And that is the witch wound. That's the witch wound. And I'm not here for it. So I hope that in this 4-part series, you have taken something away with you that will change the way you think about the witch wound, your relationship to energy and power, your own spiritual practice, and how you're showing up in your world in whatever way that is, whatever capacity you show up in the world. And know that healing the witch wound is part of the job for all of us who are here to live in our purpose, to demonstrate what it is like to be a person who lives with purpose, with self-trust, and with magic in their soul, in their heart, and a person who wants to create belonging in this world and heal that witch wound one little bit at a time and come back to it again when we add to it with all the best intentions and know that we belong even when that happens, no matter what happens. All right, y'all. Well, if you are looking for community, be sure to check out our Enchanted Journey membership. We have our annual sale in autumn every year. It only happens once per year. You'll want to check that out. Our Enchanted Journey membership has been running since 2017, and it is a wonderful place for community, for belonging, and a place to live the seasonal rhythms, the solar rhythm and the lunar rhythm, as we build the whole membership experience around these rhythms. It is time for you to heal the witch wound, heal your energy, and claim the space in this world that your soul wants to claim, big or small, tall or short, whatever. It is your space to claim, y'all. You are not an imposter, and I believe you were born magic. Okay, thank you so much for listening in. Subscribe to the channel so that you will never miss an episode. And until next time, stay magic, Enchanted Sister.